My obsession is looking for ways that all of the people on Earth can tap into their collective potential. And even before I started calling myself a humanist activist, I was always sort of obsessed with the biggest ideas and the most painful ideas. And that's a tradition I'm keeping with today because I want to talk about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance means internal conflict. And I want to talk about internal conflict because I believe it is one of the greatest threats that the human species is facing right now in many aspects and many problems that we're trying to take on. So first, an example of cognitive dissonance is, well, the universe itself. You might have seen this picture before. This is Tracy, and she's overlooking our planet from inside of a spaceship. Okay, I know we're desensitized nowadays because of how quickly technology progresses, so at the end of that sentence, could I just get a gasp? Okay. You may have seen this picture before. This is Tracy, and she's overlooking our planet from inside of a spaceship. I know. So, to me, this is an amazing picture, partly because it's a triumph. It's a triumph over the universe. Now, I say the universe is a dissonant idea because the universe is enormous, and it's cold, and it is indifferent to us. And the universe is so intimidating to contemplate that right away I feel this wish that maybe it wants to protect my planet. Maybe it wants to protect me. But Bertrand Russell thought of it differently. He said, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair can the soul's habitation be safely built. So I want to talk about how the path to our dreams, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to fight for our dreams, and we're trying to make sure that those dreams are very carefully put together. But I want to talk about how the way to put together those dreams is starting with unyielding despair, so it should be a pretty lighthearted talk. So cognitive dissonance, it's an old idea. Even Socrates used to talk about enlightenment coming as a blinding light that we want to close our eyes to. The word dissonance is a word from music. You might say that one note is dissonant with all the other notes. It doesn't quite fit. And it's the same with ideas, but it's not just cognitive dissonance isn't just that ideas don't fit. It's that great ideas can cause pain. And when an idea causes pain, that pain in turn drives us to rationalize, to move and shift. That grinding of ideas makes us modify our ideas just so we can be at peace. And we have to try and find some peace, but we also should think about how much peace do I really need to find right now? And at what cost do I want to find that peace? Because the danger of cognitive dissonance is that it can end up guiding our behaviors, it can end up determining what we believe, and it can determine our dreams. I want to help you visualize how I think of cognitive dissonance using my doodles. Say this is my belief system. These are some beliefs about myself. I like to think of myself as thoughtful. Maybe I like to think of myself as healthy. I like to think of myself as doing volunteer work. These are ideas that play perfectly well together. You bring in a new idea. And say that idea is exercise. Now, if you have an upfront doctor, if you're lucky enough to have a very upfront doctor, they'll say that you are exercising, or you're planning to exercise, or you're some kind of fool. Because the evidence for exercise is overwhelming. Exercise is so basic to the human body, it's like breathing or eating. And another thing about exercise, I don't exercise. And some of you, you guys know where I'm coming from. Not everybody exercises in here, right? Some of you exercise, and you guys are missing out on the discomfort. But for the non-exercisers, this is a good dissonant idea, because am I thoughtful? Do I care about health? So before I build the habits of exercising, what's the risk? What's the danger? Well, this automatic process, it comes as naturally to humans as breathing. I might find myself starting to say, exercise isn't that big a deal. I might start to modify the idea, minimize the idea. And I might start to say, it doesn't really have all these great effects for me. Or maybe because the doctor's my friend, or because I care too much about evidence, the idea is hard to minimize. You can bet my mind will start to try and minimize something else and say, I don't care about being healthy. And ideas can come and go, too. Maybe an idea I'll want to bring in this idea, even if it's not really grounded in anything. Just, I don't need to exercise. Most people do, but not me. because I'm an intellectual. Intellectuals don't exercise, right? Or I could lose an idea completely. I used to think I was thoughtful. If exercise is for thoughtful people, then forget that completely. The point is that our minds automatically pursue consonance. And that can be very dangerous because it can do it at any cost. And we might find ourselves believing things without good reason or good evidence. We might find ourselves making peace with behaviors that are cruel. I think we need to understand that when we notice a moment of dissonance, we should try and, like a breath, because it's an automatic process, like breathing, we can take control. We can bring our reason and our compassion and our discipline to bear. We can slow things down. We can decide, what story do I want to tell myself? What do I want to make peace with? Tell your story, or else your impulses will tell it for you. We don't have the choice sometimes whether to rationalize. We have to make peace, but we do have the choice to try and decide the shapes that our dreams take a little bit. I think we should do this because I feel that a lot of the troubles right now facing humanity are having to do with how we've accidentally ended up rationalizing, how we've the shape that our dreams have just happened to take through an automatic process. Here's another dissonant idea, more dissonant than exercise. The 10-second statistic. In the 10 seconds it takes me to give this statistic, on average, a child somewhere on the world will die of malaria, respiratory infections, something that you or I will never catch, something that will never afflict anybody that we know. These are diseases that we've overcome, and by now, another child just died from it? What's strange about that statistic is it's not new to us, so why is it that we're not all taking on the label of activists? I love the quote that there are no passengers on spaceship Earth, there are only crew. So why are maybe many of us not starting to call ourselves crew? And I think it has to do with how we've ended up rationalizing, just how the chips have fallen. But it doesn't have to be an automatic process. Remember what Bertrand Russell said. Once we get to that place of despair, we can build. We don't have to make our peace with that enormous amount of death. We can pursue options. This is an insecticide-treated mosquito net. From research from various organizations and charities like the Against Malaria Foundation, this is a great way to fight malaria because it kills all the mosquitoes in the local area. According to third-party charity evaluators, if you're ever trying to get some help picking a charity, I like charity evaluators, third parties that look for charities that are very caring but also highly strategic. According to some of these charity evaluators, the Against Malaria Foundation can save one life for every $2,300 that we can get to it. So that is my last example of dissonance, because sometimes the solution is dissonant, especially if we've made our peace with saying there's nothing I can do, the problems are too big. It can be a little dissonant to admit that. Now, maybe you don't want to give to charity. Maybe that's not the role you want to play. That brings me to my final point. I've been giving some examples of dissonance, so I want to leave you with some consonant, some nice ideas. Here's a hopeful-looking monkey. And this, to me, I try and get my consonant ideas from nature. And this always reminds me that we are primates. We are parts of nature, and that means a few things. We can only do our best. We can only do our small part, especially the automatic process of dissonance. We tend to want to tell our stories in black and white. Either I can save the world or I can do nothing, but it's not like that. And we can do a small part. And we can only ever do our best. The rest of the universe is out of our control. A lot of the people around us are out of our control. We can't ask to be the most thoughtful or the most caring or the most disciplined, but we can always try to be a little more than we are. No matter where you are, whether you're in a desperate situation or you're in luxury, you can always demand of yourself and demand of others to take another step. And another thing about being a natural creature, we were always going to have to band together and fight for our place here. The human stage is not the forest or just the desert anymore. The human stage is the planet. Our problems are enormous: global warming, and a situation where we now have to understand ourselves at a very deep level, intuitive and scientific level. This is our challenge, and we were always going to have to fight. But most of all, I want to leave you with this idea that, I mean, these are some consonant ideas. I've left you now with some nice ideas, but really the last message I want to leave you with is what to do when the idea kind of sucks. You know, like when it's a big idea, but it kind of sucks. Like, I wish that weren't true, or I wish that weren't the way, or I want to consider that, but it's causing me some conflict. I want to remind you as I remind myself to tell your story. Don't let the automatic storm of dissonance determine your dreams for you. Because the way that the human race is going to move forward now isn't by moving towards a future that we've dreamed up accidentally. It's going to be by moving towards a future that each of us is dreaming on purpose. Thank you so much.